up to the expectations that Christ himself set forth. And here's a quote from a few notes down. He says, this is 168, quote, "The church is precisely that against which Jesus preached and against which he taught his disciples to fight." The church today, this new movement, is precisely against the original teachings. And for what I thought was probably one of the most caustic condemnations against this new Christian movement, which arguably is still removed from the essential Christian beginning, is the following: an inflation of the personal ego. Right? An inflation of the personal ego. And here's the quote: "The attempt to destroy the exaggerated inflation of the person culminated in a faith of the eternal person. In concern for eternal salvation, in the most paradoxical excess of personal egoism." What does he mean by that? This is not an easy thing to understand. Even me just now, I had to make sure that I had it right. The eternal facts of Christianity, as laid out within the essence of Christianity, has been perverted, right? This eternal facts has really become sort of situated within time. Rather than talking about it as being atemporal, right? Sort of a priori, if you will, right? Atemporal. Nietzsche would hate the fact that I brought up a priori. But like sort of the eternal truths of the relationship between words and their meaning. You can think of it in that sense, right? The eternal facts have been perverted, and now we have this historical account, like a temporal account, of, and this is what's important, right, of personal immortality. The idea is, and this is obvious to everyone who knows, either is practicing or knows of the Christian belief system, the idea is that, one, your relationship with the deity is a personal relationship, and two, after you die, you personally live forever. Nietzsche says, what an odd perversion of the eternal facts, the eternal truths of Christianity, right? The structures in which the system was itself based, right, isn't one that is rooted in a personal immortality, according to Nietzsche, right? Nietzsche's going to bring this point up again later himself, but just to read the quote to make sure that, because even me, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, how do you address that? So the quote again: "The attempt to destroy the exaggerated inflation of the person culminated in the eternal person. In concern for eternal salvation, I want to be saved so that I can live forever." Right? I want to be saved so that I can live forever. And the point is, how far removed has the Christian movement come to situate their symbols within things and people, sort of idolatry worship, right? This is according to Nietzsche. And the eternal facts of the religious belief, sort of the semantics of the theological belief system as sort of eternally represented as a way of life, if you will, has now become sort of this historical attempt to personally achieve an immortal history for myself. Right? Nietzsche's like, this is not what it's about, right? This is not what Christianity is about. And I think it's important that there's a response, not necessarily to my video series, I don't really care about that, but within sort of society at large, that there is a response from the theological community to this charge, right? The claim is to sort of get ghetto, just just so that everybody sort of understands, and this is going to be a real super, generalization, but are we saying, I think Nietzsche might, sort of allow this, is it the case that what's being stated within Christian morality is that eternal salvation allows an individual to actually live forever, knowing full well that the individual has died, right? Despite the fact that the individual dies, the individual attains personal immortality. And the point is a very simple point. I erased it, but on what merit? On what merit? Right? It's a very simple question. It's like, on what merit can we justify a claim of personal immortality after death? Not conceptual immortality, not sort of like cyberspace immortality, but personal immortality. Is that immortality biological? Is it physical? Is it chemical? Is it mental? Like, in what sense is that personalized immortality possible, attainable? And not only that, but how far removed have we come from the symbology, according to Nietzsche, of the system to now talk about me, 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 me? And this is why he ends with, in the most paradoxical excess of personal egoism. Right? What he says now is that the belief system now becomes the ultimate justification for my personal intoxication with myself. Right? I am going to be here forever. I am going to live forever. And since I'm going to live forever, what I do right now doesn't really matter, because I have forever to get stuff done. Right? With sort of an antithetical approach, it's no, the clock's ticking. The Grim Reaper's coming for me any day, and I don't know when he's going to come. So I got to get stuff done, because when he comes, my time's up. And I want to make sure that my life is lived to the max, because when that day comes, I want to look back and say, I maxed it out. I couldn't have done anything more than I did. I maxed it. I lived it to the hilt. So this creates, this is the tension. This, I believe, is really sort of the root of the tension between the theistic community, the scientific community, the theistic community, and the sort of agnostic or indecisive community. It's like, we need to have a discourse if the theistic and theological community wants to even be taken seriously. There needs to be some engagement on these topics so that it can be made sense of. If it's just always an appeal back to not what the tenets were, but what it has become, sort of this, for your personal salvation, well, Nietzsche's not going to buy that at all. Okay, the 6 points of symbolic transformation, and this is actually important. We'll talk about this later. He talks about 6 different points. I'm not going to write these all on the board now because they're pretty extensive. I will reference these later in the lecture, so at that time I'll discuss it. But 1, the antithesis, real life and false life, misunderstood as this life and the life to come. So this account of the afterlife, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in more detail. Number 2, the concept eternal life, the antithesis is transient personal life as personal immortality. This is what I was just talking about, right? And this is note 170, personal immortality, right? So the idea, the concept eternal life, and the antithesis of this becomes sort of my personal immortality. Number 3, brotherhood on the basis of sharing food and drink together after the Hebrew-Arabic custom as a miracle of transubstantiation, right? So we take the idea of sharing food with our brothers, and we talk about the miracle of the breaking bread, infinitely, almost. Number 4, the idea of resurrection, right? Understood as an entry into real life, a state of rebirth. This is made into sort of rising from the dead, right? So that the symbolic gesture of resurrection was, in the traditional sense, according to Nietzsche, was a rebirth into a new worldview. That's all it was. It was, I had a worldview prior to this, right? My worldview might have been, informed more or less by my customs, and now I have a new worldview and I'm reborn into this worldview. That symbolic conception was historically situated in the body, again. And now it's, no, we mean resurrection of the physical dead people, so that, Lazarus was resurrected, and on Judgment Day, corpses are going to be, emerging from the dirt. that